Now that I've got things mocked up here pretty much where they're going to be, I want to figure out a bumper bar situation. So this is the factory bar, and it's going to be way too big to fit with the new front mount, but I do need to incorporate some of this bracketing because it basically helps fit the bumper on. Otherwise, you end up having a bit of a sag under the headlight, and I want to avoid that. So I'll likely be cutting this section out, and it'll be mounted to its stock location, but obviously it won't have the bar in the middle. So with that, I'm trying to incorporate the 15 plus GrimmSpeed bumper bar that is an optional extra with our front mount kits. What I did was I grabbed some of the raw materials, 2 of the mounting brackets and the bar itself, and I'm gonna see if I can get it to fit. It should be pretty close, but we'll see. And if I can, then I'll have our welders weld it up. I'll have it powder coated and it should look really nice on there, and plus offer a little bit of protection in case something happens. But here's what the standard 15 plus bar looks like. It's pretty much spot on. I think with a little adjustment, maybe some drilling, we'll be able to make it work. The bumper bar brackets mount right up into the original mounting holes here. The third one does not, so I'll have to figure out something down there, whether it's maybe trimming it shorter and doing a new location in there, or maybe welding in a piece of metal so that I can have another bolt go through. The bumper bar itself actually fits pretty well. You can see it's about 1/4 of an inch too long. So I had an idea. I went and grabbed a ratchet strap. So what I'm gonna do is ratchet strap this together and see if I can just bend it in a little bit more. It's a pretty thick pipe, so I might not be able to do it, but this is the kind of redneck version of a pipe bender, but just to give me a little bit more clearance on it. So the ratchet strap method didn't work out all that well, mostly because this metal is so thick. It did bend just a little bit. I have a little more clearance than I had before, but ultimately I'm gonna go back to what my first idea was, and that's just to notch the corner here, and it should slip in easily. I mean, we're only dealing with a 1/4 inch over the entire length, so an 1/8 inch on either side. I feel like if I notch it, it should fit in there, but let's give it a try. Okay, so the bar is notched on either side. Theoretically, it should now fit. I had, like I mentioned, about a 1/4 inch of gap on one side. Now it should be about an 1/8 inch on both sides, which is definitely a gap I can live with. I can have my welders fill it in. And look at that, it fits just fine. So next step is to bring it in the shop, have them tack weld it, bring it back here, make sure it all fits, and then modify the brackets so that the third mounting location will end up somewhere, whether it's welding a piece of metal onto the car or maybe making something work. I don't know quite yet. But at the end of it, we'll have something like this after it comes back from powder coat. Now, this is a direct fit for the 15 plus WRX and STI. Like I mentioned, that comes as an optional extra with our kit. This one's a little more custom, but we didn't have to do all that much to make it work on this. And now I've got the added protection here, and I think it's just gonna look a little bit better once, again, it's powder coated and everything is where it's supposed to be. But I'd say it's coming together pretty nicely. Next up, I'm gonna pull all of these bolts off of the OEM bumper bar assembly. I basically need just from here over to be able to mount on either side so that the bumper has something to rest on and doesn't sag underneath the headlights. So I'm gonna do some chopping here, try and make it work with the bumper bar assembly I have now, and then we'll test fit it all up, make sure that it clears and fits nicely. After that, we're gonna pull the stuff off, get it off to welding and whatever we need to do. And the next step is gonna be starting to mock up some intercooler piping and silicone. I'm going to be pulling some of the piping off of our existing front mount kits to see what can work, and then maybe fabricating something else. So we'll get there, but let's start here, and hopefully this goes smoothly. See how this fits up on the JDM bumper. This bar is a little bit different on the USDM versus JDM, so we'll see how close it is. I know some of the mounting locations are going to be different, so here's one, and here's another over here. Looks like that lines up, and that lines up decently well. So basically what we want to do is cut around that, and around that. And we won't need this middle section anymore since the intercooler butts right up to the plastic on here, and this is just gonna get in the way. I had to cut most of the OEM bumper bar bracket away. This is pretty much all we're left with on either side. Now, it fits a little bit funky. You have more of a gap here than here, but the intercooler itself is symmetrical. You can kind of tell with the plastic headlight trim here that the core does sit in the middle, and obviously the core support is dead on in the middle. So I'm wondering if the bracket is kind of offset as OEM, but either way, I'll probably trim it up just to match a little bit more, but the cut is pretty precise on either side to be able to get those clips in here. So I'm gonna need these parts, again, for the bumper sag. I wanna avoid that. Lots of Subarus, you see a big gap under the headlight trim, and that's mostly because people don't incorporate this, or it's bent down or something like that. So let's get this bumper bar back in, and then I'm gonna throw the bumper on and see if it fits, fingers crossed, and hopefully I don't have to make too much adjustment. Well, here it is, the bumper with the intercooler and the bumper bar that I got to work, along with the brackets that I had to cut up to make the seat a little bit better. And it all worked out pretty well. I mean, this is just mocked up with no clips or anything, and it's sitting pretty good. As you can see, the mounting locations are right on, and these clips will kind of pop in there. Aside from that, I do need to shave a little bit of plastic in here. That's why it's sitting a little more forward than I'd like. Once those are gone, it should be perfectly flush. So I'll do that kind of off camera, and then the next thing you'll see is this car with the headlight trim on, the grill in, and probably a few do these clips in just to make sure everything fits. That's probably a good segue into the next episode. So I'll kind of end it here. I'll show you guys what it looks like mocked up before I do. And then next episode, we'll probably focus on some of the intercooler piping, maybe get back under the hood with the reverse manifold and start mocking that up. And then doing some exterior stuff like taking these fog light surrounds off. A couple of these bolts are seized up, so I'll probably have to cut them and figure out something there. And then we'll go on to just a few random things. I really want to get to the rear bumper, which I said I was going to take off and never really got there. But that's probably one of the other next steps. Pulling that, getting the JDM bumper on and seeing how that fits. Should be a little easier than here because there's not a big intercooler behind it, but there is the custom exhaust system that I have, so I'll have to probably do some fab down there. Otherwise, thanks for watching this episode, and more progress on the next one, hopefully.